Okay, ready to dive deep. We're tackling a topic that's less future and more happening right now, artificial intelligence. And you've sent in a pretty impressive stack of AI articles and notes.
Sounds like you're not just here for the buzzwords.
Not at all. Our listeners want to decode AI, see what's actually going on beneath all the hype.
Which is smart because AI is already woven into our lives in ways most people completely miss.
Hmm.
That search engine you used this morning, the movie it suggested last night, AI was quietly at work.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. And this isn't some far-off sci-fi fantasy anymore. AI is actively reshaping healthcare, finance, even the very way we work. This is the real deal.
So let's decode it then. In this deep dive, we're not just defining AI, we're exploring its truly mind-blowing applications, some you've probably never even heard of. From revolutionizing entire industries to making us rethink the nature of intelligence itself, get ready for a wild ride.
You know, it's fascinating how AI forces us to re-examine what we think we know. We'll take this for example. We often hear that AI aims to replicate human intelligence. Right. But did you know that AI can now compose musical pieces that even seasoned experts can't distinguish from human-made ones?
Really?
It's true. We're talking about AI tapping into creativity, not just logic.
That's incredible. So it's not just about robots and algorithms, it's about replicating something uniquely human. I mean, where do we even begin with understanding how this all works? Is it as simple as just feeding a computer a bunch of data?
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the key tools in the AI toolbox is something called machine learning.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but I'll admit I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
Imagine teaching a dog a new trick, but instead of commands, you use rewards for the behaviors you want. You're not telling the dog exactly how to do it. With enough repetition and positive reinforcement, it kind of figures it out on its own.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
That's kind of how machine learning works. Instead of programming every single rule, we feed AI massive amounts of data and let it learn from the patterns it finds.
So instead of giving it instructions, we're giving it the ingredients to learn for itself.
Exactly. Think about those CAPTCHA tests online, the ones that ask you to identify bicycles or traffic lights in a grid of pictures.
Oh, I know those. Click all the squares with a crosswalk.
Exactly. Every click you make is essentially you training an AI to recognize those objects.
Yeah.
The more data it's fed, the smarter it gets.
That's wild. So I'm actually contributing to AI training every time I prove I'm not a robot.
In a way, yes.
Wow. But AI isn't just about identifying images. What about things like understanding and responding to language? ChatGPT, for example. Everyone seems to be talking about its ability to have human-like conversations.
That's where natural language processing comes into play. It's a field of AI that focuses on giving machines the ability to understand and communicate in human language.
So it's like teaching a computer to read, write, and speak our languages.
You got it. And it's what powers those incredibly realistic chatbots and language models like the one you mentioned, ChatGPT.
And ChatGPT isn't just a parlor trick. This technology is already being used to write articles, poetry, even computer code.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It's both impressive and a little unnerving to think about how quickly it's evolving.
It really highlights how AI's impact goes way beyond just games and entertainment. This technology is revolutionizing fields like healthcare, for instance.
Oh, in what ways?
Imagine algorithms analyzing medical images with far greater accuracy than humans. We're talking about potentially catching diseases like cancer in their earliest, most treatable stages.
So we're talking about AI potentially saving lives.
Absolutely. And AI's role in healthcare goes even further. It's being used in drug discovery, personalizing treatment plans, even performing incredibly precise robotic surgeries.
Wow, it's like having a superpowered medical assistant. But with those analytical abilities, I'm guessing its applications go beyond just healthcare, right?
Definitely. Take finance, for example.
Yeah.
AI thrives on analyzing patterns and making predictions, which makes it a natural fit for the financial world.
Makes sense. So how is it being used in finance?
One fascinating application is algorithmic trading. Imagine AI systems analyzing market data at lightning speed, making trades far faster and often more effectively than human traders ever could.
It's like having a superpowered stockbroker working around the clock.
Exactly. And its impact on finance extends beyond just trading. AI is transforming fraud detection, risk assessment, even personalizing customer service. It's becoming essential for financial institutions all over the world.
That's incredible, but with all this talk about its potential, it's only natural to wonder about the downsides, right? I mean, are there risks we should be considering as AI becomes more powerful and so integrated into our lives?
Of course, it's not about doom and gloom, but about understanding the whole picture. Even with something as seemingly objective as an algorithm, we have to remember that these AI systems are shaped by the data they learn from.
So if an AI is only fed information that reflects existing biases, it's going to perpetuate those biases.
Exactly. For example, an AI system used in hiring could unintentionally discriminate against certain candidates if it's been trained on data that reflects existing inequalities.
That's a really important point.
And it's something that researchers and developers are actively working to address. Ensuring that AI is developed and deployed responsibly is an ongoing discussion, and it's one that's going to become increasingly important as AI evolves.
It makes you realize that AI isn't this perfect, objective thing.
Not at all. It's a reflection of the data it's trained on and the people who create it.
That's a really important thing to keep in mind, especially as it becomes more powerful. Now, you mentioned earlier that AI isn't exactly a new concept. What's the story behind it? When did this incredible journey begin?
The roots of AI actually go back further than many people realize. Did you know that the field of AI research officially kicked off back in 1956 at a workshop at Dartmouth College?
Wow, 1956. I had no idea AI had been around that long. What were those early days of AI research like? Was it smooth sailing from there?
Not exactly. There were periods of incredible excitement and optimism, with researchers believing that human-level artificial intelligence was just around the corner.
So they thought they were on the verge of creating something as intelligent as a human.
They did. But then there were also periods we call AI winters, when funding for AI research dried up.
What caused that?
Sometimes it was due to unmet expectations, other times it was because of technological limitations.
So a bit of a roller coaster ride.
Exactly. But what's interesting is that those setbacks often led to new breakthroughs and approaches.
It's like those setbacks force them to rethink their assumptions and find new ways forward.
Exactly. And one of the most significant developments in recent years has been the rise of something called deep learning.
Deep learning. That's
Yeah.
another one I've heard but don't fully understand.
It uses complex neural networks, which are inspired by the human brain, to process information. Imagine teaching computers to learn like humans, but on a much larger, more complex scale.
So it's like we're taking inspiration from the structure of our own brains to create more powerful AI.
You got it. And it's been a complete game changer. Deep learning has led to those rapid advancements we talked about earlier in things like image recognition, natural language processing, and even those self-driving cars.
It's amazing to think how far AI has come and how those advancements are now shaping our world.
It's truly remarkable.
But with all this talk about its potential and all this progress, there's also the question of ethics, right? How do we make sure that AI is developed and used responsibly?
It's such a crucial question, and thankfully there's a growing movement around AI ethics and governance. Organizations like the European Union and the United Nations are working on guidelines and regulations for AI development.
So like creating an international rule book for AI to make sure it's used for good and not for harm?
That's the idea. It's about fostering innovation while also addressing the ethical considerations that come with such a powerful technology. And this conversation is happening on multiple levels, from international organizations down to the individual developers who are building ethical considerations into their AI systems from the ground up.
So it's a collaborative effort to guide AI development in a responsible direction.
Absolutely.
It's a lot to think about for sure, and definitely highlights the broader impact of AI beyond just the technology itself. Now, this Wikipedia article you sent over mentions something called electronic personhood, and honestly, it sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel.
It does, doesn't it? But it's a real concept being debated right now, and it gets to the heart of some fundamental questions about the nature of AI and its place in society.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is electronic personhood exactly?
Essentially, it's the idea of granting legal rights and responsibilities to highly sophisticated AI systems. It's about recognizing their ability to perform tasks and make decisions that were once considered exclusively human.
So instead of viewing AI as just a tool, we'd be treating it more like an entity with its own agency.
Precisely. Think about how corporations are considered legal entities.
Okay, so like a company can be sued or can own property even though it's not a human being.
Exactly. Proponents of electronic personhood argue that as AI systems become more autonomous and capable, extending similar legal protections might make sense. It's a really complex issue, with strong arguments on both sides.
So what are the arguments in favor of giving AI legal rights? It seems like a pretty big step.
It is a big step. Those who support electronic personhood say it could help clarify liability.
What do you mean?
Okay. Imagine a self-driving car is involved in an accident. Who's ultimately responsible? The owner, the manufacturer, or the AI system itself?
That's a really good question.
Electronic personhood could give us a legal framework for figuring out those kinds of situations.
So it's like we need to figure out who's responsible for holding the steering wheel, even if that wheel is metaphorical and the driver is an AI.
Precisely. And some experts even argue that electronic personhood could actually lead to more innovation.
How so?
Well, if AI systems had legal protections, companies might be more likely to invest in developing them, right? Knowing that their creations have a kind of legal standing.
That's an interesting point, but like you said, it's a debate. So what about the other side? What are the arguments against giving AI these rights? It does seem pretty radical.
It is, and some people think it's way too early for such a drastic move. They argue that we're nowhere near creating AI that's actually conscious or self-aware.
So it would be like giving out driver's licenses before anyone even knows how to drive.
In a way, yes.
Hmm,
They say granting legal personhood before we truly understand what AI is capable of would be getting way ahead of ourselves.
that makes sense. It's like we're still figuring out the basics, and here we are talking about giving them rights.
Exactly. And there are worries about unintended consequences, too.
Like what kinds of consequences?
Well, some people are concerned that recognizing AI as legal persons could actually weaken human rights.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought of that.
Or it could create a slippery slope where machines end up having more power than their creators.
Okay, yeah, those are some pretty serious concerns. It seems like this debate over electronic personhood really highlights the deeper questions we have about AI in general.
It really does.
We're talking about intelligence, consciousness, what it means to be human, big stuff.
Absolutely. AI is making us think about some really fundamental philosophical questions.
It's not just about technological progress anymore, is it? It's about our place in the world and how these incredible creations fit into that.
Exactly. It's a lot to process.
It really is. This whole discussion about electronic personhood makes me think about the more practical side of things. I mean, are there any actual places where these laws about AI rights are being considered seriously?
Well, that Wikipedia article you sent mentioned that the European Union has been looking into this whole concept.
Really?
They've even proposed some guidelines for developing AI that touch on these ethical considerations and potential future situations, like electronic personhood.
So they're trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit.
In a way, yes. But it's still really early stages, and there isn't any global agreement on the best way to move forward.
It'll be interesting to see how that develops.
It definitely will.
It seems like this conversation is just getting started, and we'll probably be grappling with it for years to come.
Probably.
Okay, well, let's switch gears a bit and talk about another part of the AI world that I find super interesting, open source AI.
That's a great transition. Open source AI is really changing the game.
It is, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure I understand what it means. Can you break it down for us? What exactly is open source AI?
Absolutely. At its core, open source AI is all about making AI technology more accessible and transparent. Think of it like the open source movement for software, where the code is freely available for anyone to use, modify, and share as they please.
So instead of just a handful of big tech companies controlling AI, it's more about democratizing it, letting anyone contribute to how it's developed.
Exactly. Imagine a world where anyone, from researchers and developers to even just hobbyists, has the tools and knowledge to create their own AI applications.
That's kind of amazing when you think about it.
It really is. That's the potential of open source AI. It could unleash a wave of innovation from every corner of the globe.
It's like leveling the playing field, creating opportunities we haven't even imagined yet.
I agree. And it's not just about access to the technology, it's about transparency.
What do you mean?
With open source AI, you can actually see how these systems are built, how they make decisions. That means we can potentially address problems, like bias, more effectively.
So it's about making AI less of a mystery and building trust with this technology.
Precisely. Transparency is key to building trust, and open source AI is a powerful way to do that.
Makes sense, but it's not without its challenges, right?
Right. It's not perfect.
Are there risks that come with making AI so accessible? It seems like opening it up to everyone could backfire.
You're right to think about that. One concern is misuse.
What do you mean?
Well, if these AI models and tools are freely available, there's always a chance that they could fall into the wrong hands.
Being used for harmful purposes instead of helpful ones.
Exactly. That's the risk.
So it's a double-edged sword. It has incredible potential for good, but we need to be cautious about the ethical implications.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right balance. And the open source AI community understands this too. They're working on creating ethical guidelines and best practices for developing and sharing this technology responsibly.
It's encouraging to hear that they're thinking about those things. Can you give us some concrete examples of these organizations or projects that are leading the way in the open source AI movement?
Absolutely. One name that stands out is Hugging Face.
Hugging Face. I've never heard of them.
They've created a platform that's become a central hub for sharing open source AI models, data sets, tools, everything. Think of it like a GitHub for AI, where researchers and developers from all over the world can collaborate and build on each other's work.
So it's a global community of AI enthusiasts all working together.
Exactly. And Hugging Face is just one example. There are lots of other organizations doing great work in open source AI. For instance, there's Eleuther AI. They're focused on developing and releasing large language models. And even Meta, the company behind Facebook, has open-sourced its powerful Llama 2 model.
Wow, so even tech giants are getting involved in this movement towards open source AI. That's pretty amazing. It seems like there's a real shift happening towards collaboration and transparency in the AI world.
Definitely. It's exciting to see. Open source AI has the potential to be a real game changer.
It sounds like it. So much to consider with open source AI. It's clearly got huge potential, but also some risks, like anything else. We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
Well, yeah.
From those fundamental concepts of what AI even is and its history, to its incredible applications, the ethical dilemmas, the potential benefits, and the potential disruptions. It's a lot.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is, and it makes you realize that we're just beginning to understand the full impact AI will have on our world.
You're absolutely right. We've really only scratched the surface.
That's what makes this whole field so fascinating, though, right? It's constantly changing, pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
And challenging us to think in new ways.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to hear your take on where AI might be headed next. What do you think the future holds for this technology?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball.
Of course not. But you must have some thoughts.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that AI is on this incredible trajectory. We can expect to see even more advanced applications in areas we've already talked about, healthcare, finance, transportation, but also in fields we haven't even imagined yet.
It's both thrilling and maybe a little scary to think about all the possibilities, right?
It is, and those possibilities are endless.
Are there any specific areas of AI that you find particularly promising or maybe even concerning?
One area that really fascinates me is how AI is intersecting with human creativity.
What do you mean?
Well, we already see AI creating art, writing music, even composing poetry, right?
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. And I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible when we blend human creativity with the power of AI.
So we could be on the verge of an AI-powered creative boom. That's a pretty exciting thought. But are there any potential downsides to this whole fusion of human and artificial creativity? Could AI eventually replace artists and musicians entirely?
That's a question a lot of people are asking. And it's an important one. While AI can definitely mimic and even surpass human capabilities in certain areas, I think human creativity will always have that special something, that unique spark.
So you don't think AI will ever fully replace human artists?
I don't think so. It's about more than just skill. You know, human creativity is about emotion, intention, our shared human experience.
That's reassuring.
It's about expressing something deeply human.
So it seems like the most exciting possibility isn't about replacement, but collaboration.
Exactly.
AI as a tool that works alongside human creativity, making it even better.
Think of it like this. AI is like a brand new color on an artist's palette or a new instrument in a musician's orchestra. It's not about limiting the possibilities, but about expanding them.
I love that analogy. It's not about replacing the artist, but giving them new tools to express themselves.
Precisely.
And that seems to be a running theme with AI, doesn't it? It's full of these fascinating paradoxes. It can be exciting and a little scary at the same time.
It's true. Full of potential, but also potential pitfalls.
Exactly. Which is why it's so important to approach it with curiosity, critical thinking, and a real commitment to making sure it's developed ethically.
We can't just bury our heads in the sand. We need to understand AI and make sure we're using it responsibly.
It's a call to action for everyone, really. Stay informed, engage in these conversations, and help shape the future of AI in a way that benefits all of us, not just a select few.
Absolutely. This isn't something that's going to be decided in some lab somewhere. It's a conversation for everyone.
Exactly. And remember, the future of AI isn't set in stone. It's being written right now by scientists, by engineers, by policymakers, and yes, even by podcast listeners like you.
Everyone has a role to play.
It's empowering, isn't it, to know that we all have a say in shaping this powerful technology.
It's not every day you get to help shape the future.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least. It's really given me a whole new understanding of AI, from the technical stuff to how it's impacting society.
It's been a pleasure exploring all of this with you.
Likewise. And remember, this is just the start of the AI revolution.
It's only going to get more interesting from here.
Exactly. So still curious, keep learning. Who knows what incredible breakthroughs we'll see in the years ahead. For now, it's time for us to sign off, but we'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's shaping our world. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the world of knowledge.